So I'm here with Kelsey Hamilton. She's a U of L student studying athletic performance and psychology of the athletic mind. I just had a few questions for you regarding feedback reinforcement and intrinsic motivation. First question, how would you describe your position as an intrinsic motivator?
Okay, yeah, I think that my position is a very empowering position because I get to have athletes reach their full potential on and off the field, and it's very I guess I feel very successful when I get to that point in time when I actually do motivate these students to perform so well and know that they are good enough to do their performing on and off the field.
Awesome. So what would you say is motivation to you? What is your definition of that?
Oh, that's a good one. Motivation to me is just something that someone has inside of them, and it just pushes them to do better and better themselves. And even the people that are around them can be good motivators. And it's just something that you have to grow into, and you have to learn how to motivate yourself as well as others. And I think it's just a learning process, and I think that it's a very good trait for someone to have, to be able to motivate themselves to do better and succeed.
Do you believe that reinforcement and motivation pose as an important aspect to athletics and their performance?
Yeah, I do believe that reinforcement and motivation really affects an athlete. And because, not all of us can perform to our expectations every game. And if we don't do that, then we kind of get in our minds that we can't perform as well as the next game or whatever you're participating in. And when you give those athletes the motivation and reinforcement, you kind of change the way that they're thinking about themselves and how they perform, and you're kind of getting them to believe that they are better and believe that they can do better than what they did maybe the last game. And I think that the reinforcement there is a very positive aspect of motivating an athlete to do so.
Awesome. So in your eyes and during your experience right now, how is the confidence of the athlete affected through motivation, if it is at all?
Oh yeah, it for sure is. Well, when an athlete has more motivation, they have more confidence, and with more confidence you have a better performance, and you have a better mindset of what you're doing out there on and off the field. And I think with confidence, it comes from your family and your friends and your inner self, and the want and need to succeed and do your best. And I definitely feel that with more confidence and more motivation, it definitely intertwines with each other.
So, do you ever see yourself possibly working with a coach in the future?
Yeah, I would think I would definitely see myself working with a coach, and as I further my process into what I'm studying. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. So, do you think that being a motivator or a reinforcement kind of coach yourself, would that work along or against the coach, or possibly both, just depending?
Possibly both. I think that it can definitely work against a coach because, coaches can be very harsh when it comes to athletes, and, they don't really have the sensitive side that maybe some athletes do need, because everyone is different, and everyone kind of performs differently the way that they are talked to, and maybe on the sidelines when you see a coach yelling at a player. But I think mine is definitely a more not sensitive approach, but a subtle approach to where they kind of get what I'm saying, and they're not just getting screamed at like you would see some coaches do. Not all coaches are like that, but I think that it would definitely work against in that way. But I think that it also works with that, because you're kind of initially wanting the same goal. You're wanting the same performance and the same success in that game or whatever that you're doing. Even if it's at practice, you want that same outcome. And I think that it can definitely work with and against a coach.
So next question I have for you, does personality in general affect how well or unwell an athlete accepts reinforcement and turns that into self-motivation?
Yeah, personality is definitely a major key factor in how athletes kind of absorb that reinforcement. If a personality is very I'm already to where I need to be, I'm already the best, and some athletes do have that, personality trait, and if they're like very hard-headed or stubborn, they're not going to retain that information that you're trying to say to them very well. But then you have personality traits that are very like open-minded and very want to improve themselves and have that open-mindedness to accept that reinforcement. And you definitely get a variety of personalities in the athletic departments, and sometimes their personalities will come out differently in different environments. So I think that it is a very important aspect of how an athlete performs.
On to just a little bit more about your position. What is the biggest difference to you between secondary reinforcement, your job, and self-motivation? Do you think one holds more effect than the other, or not? Do you think that with your job as a reinforcer, it would be better that you do it, or self-motivation?
I think it's better, not me personally do it myself, but I think it's definitely better to have that secondary reinforcement, because sometimes I even find myself like trying to motivate myself and just being like, oh, just forget it. But once you have that somebody next to you that's like pushing you and like doing it with you and talking with you to motivate you and have that reinforcement, it's definitely, I feel like, more effective. But you also have some people that can just motivate themselves and get to the point with themselves, and I think that's a very good quality to have. But me personally, and some of the people that I have motivated, I think that having that secondary motivation is better.
Okay, so this question has to go along with the last question. They kind of go hand in hand with intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I know that you know what both of those are. You've been studying them for a bit. Which do you think helps most on the playing field? Intrinsic just being like self-motivation, and extrinsic being like outside forces like yourself and others.
Yeah, I think both intrinsic and extrinsic are very important equally, because when your intrinsic motivation is working, and you're out there on the field, like kind of like being the individual out there playing, that intrinsic motivation definitely comes in handy, and it definitely shows. And you're kind of like in your head thinking while you're out on the field or wherever you're at, and that definitely comes out and it shows. And I think the extrinsic motivation is definitely empowering, because you can hear your family and friends out on the field or out in the stands cheering you on, and I think that's a very primary motivation to have out there, and to have that support system, and to have that reinforcement that you are playing for not only yourself but the people around you and your teammates and your school that you're playing for.
Awesome, thank you. So this next question, I don't know if you've heard a lot about it, but the competence motivation theory, have you studied that a bit?
I've studied a little bit. I haven't had much practice in that area as of to the point where I'm at right now.
Okay, so basically it's just like the perception and connection between sense of control and self-worth. Your opinions on this, I just wanted to know, like, do you believe that if you have more self-control on the field or the court or wherever you're performing at, do you think that self-worth goes up? Do you think that the more confidence you have, the more you believe in yourself, essentially?
Oh yeah, I think that definitely goes hand in hand with self-control and self-worth, because when you feel that you are doing great on whatever performance that you're doing, that you feel like you are making an impact on that team, and you're making an impact on your skills, and you're bettering yourself. So when you have that self-control, your self-worth definitely goes up, because you feel like you're doing something, you feel important, and you feel like you're a good addition to that team and to the game. And I feel that it definitely helps an athlete when they have their self-control, and how their self-worth can go up, because they feel that they're doing something, and they feel like they are definitely reaching their full potential.
Okay, just a couple more questions here. Promise I'll get you out of here soon. What's the relation of motivation to reward? Is the reward bigger with more motivation and reinforcement, or is there not really a correlation, do you think?
In My opinion and my experience, I feel like that there is not really a direct correlation between that because it depends on the person and how they get motivated. So if a person gets motivated with rewards, then I think that's definitely like a connection there because rewards feel good. Like you feel good when you get rewarded or when you get that trophy or whatever kind of reward that you're getting, or whether it just be like a verbal reward from your teammates or your coach. So I feel like that it depends on the person because some people just get motivated by the excitement of the environment that they're in, and I think that's a very good motivation to have. And I think it definitely just depends. It doesn't, in my personal opinion, it doesn't have a direct correlation, but just saying that I think that just depends on the athlete and their environment.
So you can bring anything into this question, but it's kind of vague. A lot of athletes suffer from game-stemming anxiety. How does feedback reinforcement help athletes cope with this anxiety on and off the court?
I think it plays a big part in calming that anxiety because, in my personal experience with cheerleading, I would get very anxious with going onto the field because you have the music, you have the crowd, you have the lights, the announcers, and, with cheerleading, it's like, in cheerleading and every other sport, it's like, you hit or miss, and I think that's very anxiety driven with all athletes. And I think that me being there and not being the coach, I'm just gonna kind of to assist, and I think that it definitely calms the nerves and it definitely calms the anxiety for them to just like take time to think about it and just to relax and breathe. And I think that I feel like I do assist with that, and I find it very empowering that I am able to do that. And when we come out with a win, that it's even better.
Okay, so I just have one more question for you. Simple, I guess. So obviously, feedback, reinforcement, and motivation are all important. So what are some ways that you use and employ those in your own life, and what could you recommend to others for self-motivation?
I motivate myself by, I guess definitely through music, which is a kind of weird thing to do, but when I have that very upbeat kind of music that just kind of gets your blood pumping and your excitement going, I think that's very motivational for me. I like to surround myself with a good support system, which I think is a very good for motivating. I've always had a strong support system and friends to push me and family to push me. And I honestly think that you have to do what's best for you in motivating yourself. And I think if it's listening to good music, or if it's just kind of isolating yourself and just kind of meditating, I guess, and if that makes you motivated, then go for it. And I think that you have to do what works best for you, and I think that you have to know your athletes to where what motivates them. And I think that once you motivate yourself and once you can motivate the others around you, I think you're good to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me for a few minutes, and just answering some questions. You really shed some insight on some feedback and reinforcement and motivation and all of that stuff. So thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.